Let's walk through an example of subcontracting in project management and accounting module. So we will show you how to initiate a subcontracting engagement and how to manage vendor payments to make sure the quality of products and services provided by vendors meet the bar. Let's create a new project, and I call it training project. It's a time and material project, and I'm going to work. The customer will be City Manufacturing. But because it's a training project, we often outsource the work and find subcontractors that can do the job. And to make sure customer will be happy, we want to retain some amount of money from the vendors so that we make sure customer is happy with the level of services that they receive. So let's go ahead and add for all the vendor engagement on this specific project. I would like to have a retention term of 10%. So what we are saying here is that 10% of every vendor invoice will be retained until the work is complete, and we are happy with that. You also have the option to tie to pay when paid. For this example, I will just use vendor retentions. Okay, so I have defined the terms under which I want to engage with my customers. Now I change the project stage to in process so that I can create transactions on the project. And then I go and I create a new purchase order. On the purchase order, I select capable sales. If you remember, according to the vendor agreements that I have associated to the project, any vendor I choose, the 10% will be withheld from their payments. Now, I choose the item that I want to use from this vendor, which was, for example, the training services that I want. So I do have a service item in my product master, which is called training service. And I know that I will need about 180 hours of training with unit price of $50 an hour, which is captured in my system. But let's really look at the details about this line. Now I can see that this payment retention is applicable, 10% until 100% complete. This was the vendor agreement that I had to make sure the quality of the work is high. So now I have my project purchase order created, and now I go ahead and confirm it. After the PO is confirmed, the subcontractor starts the work, and after a couple of weeks, they will send me a vendor invoice. So I go back to the purchase order, and I try to generate a vendor invoice so that I can pay the vendor. So I can see that I ordered 180 hours from vendor being capable sales, and I'm about to post a vendor invoice. But I also can see more details. As I had retention terms defined, I can see based on the retention term, which was 10%, I will retain $900 from this vendor invoice. Again, the total was $9,000 vendor invoice, and I'm going to retain $900 off of that. So I'm going to post the vendor invoice. I did not specify the vendor invoice number, so I do have to enter the number, and now I hit post. So the expectation is that the $900 to be returned from the vendor invoice. Okay, the status says invoiced. Before doing anything, I go back to the project and look at the posted project transactions. So this was the training project, and I opened the posted transactions. There I can see that the total cost amount is $9,000. However, if I go back to the vendor invoice for that project, I can see that for that purchase orders, I had invoices. And if I generate another invoice, and imagine that I'm going to go with order quantity, After a few weeks, the customer is happy with the quality of training service, and now I want to release the remaining retain amount. So I generate another invoice, and then I will release the retain amount, which is the $900. Without releasing the retain amount, an AP clerk cannot go ahead and pay the full amount. So if an AP clerk wants to pay the vendor, they were able to do that, but for $9,000 minus $900. After posting this invoice and specifying the invoice number, now an AP clerk can go ahead and pay the vendor because we verified the quality of the work provided by the vendor, we were happy with the level of service, and it is now fully invoiced, and an AP clerk can pay the vendor. You saw that we were able to return amount from the vendor invoices. But where these liability amount will be posted to? Let's look into that. If you go to General Ledger and you go to under Posting, under Accounts for Automatic Transaction, as retainage is an automatic transaction, you will see that a vendor account is being specified as the posting type and the main account number is here. So any liability that needs to be paid to a vendor according to the retentions will be posted here. Let's review the core concepts. Service items, products of type service that will model non-tangible products. Service items can have stock or non-stock item model group. Payment retention will be the amount of money retained from vendor invoice to verify quality of the work. Pay when paid is when you tie the payment to vendor to payment from customers. So basically, I will pay the vendor when I get paid by customer.